I mean, it's such a heavy, loaded word, and it's something that I obviously think about every day, especially after getting diagnosed with cancer and kind of having to look it in the face a little bit more than I ever considered, especially at age like 24 or 25. So death, I think, has such a different meaning to me versus what I believe society sees it as. I think a lot of people have this idea of death and dying as in, like, you need to make your life into some type of monument. You need to be remembered, you need to be famous or wealthy or have done these crazy things that, you know, people will know for centuries. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that it's just not the right idea of death, and especially not meaningful to me in that way. Because we are mortal and everyone dies. I mean, that's just a fact. You know, becoming a monument, I just don't think that's the right way to look at it anymore. I don't want to live my life chasing after my ego or chasing after what I think other people want to see out of me. So I kind of started looking at death and really just the human experience, and realized that maybe we are spiritual beings here not to become monuments or do anything except just have this human experience and, you know, feel everything and have all of these experiences and feel pain and suffering, but know the joy of love as well. So yeah, I kind of stopped when I realized, okay, I'm 25 and this might be it. This might be my last year. I have to make peace with what I've done in my life so far, which I would say I'm pretty proud of and I'm cool with. But knowing that it could be taken that quickly and you don't have the time to make some crazy monument or to become this figure like Oprah or, you know, Kanye West or whoever it is, even those people are going to die too. And eventually everyone is forgotten. That's the way I see it. Everyone will be forgotten at some point, whether it's in 50 years or in a couple centuries or in thousands of years. So I think it's kind of a big lie that society tries to sell us, that you have to create a monument out of your death versus just live the life that you want, live the way that you want, and, you know, have all of these experiences and just say, okay, that was good. That's all I needed. Death makes me feel scared in some senses and really peaceful in others. And I think that both of those can kind of coexist, and they have personally for me in, you know, facing my mortality, but also knowing that control is, you know, it's kind of also a lie that we're being sold, and there's very little control that we have even over our lives and what happens to us. So I think there's always a little bit of fear, and it's natural to have that fear of death, but finding the peace in it too is just, it can make everything make so much more sense. A complicated one, I would say. I was raised Catholic, so I kind of have all of that information and all of that background of heaven and purgatory and hell and all of these ideas of where you go and what you're good enough for or not good enough for. And it's not that I abandon those principles. I still kind of see that as the framework for what made me who I am. But I do believe in souls, and I do believe that not every soul leaves this earth or is able to move on, especially if you don't, if you're not ready to. That's the kind of the way I see it. Like, yeah, I mean, gosh, that's such a hard question. Something that really fascinates me is that death is so easy. Like, we are so perishable as humans, and we die in the strangest of circumstances, or not. We die very easily, but death is so difficult to wrap your head around, and grief and pain that comes from that, from losing someone that you love, it can change the entire course of your life. So it's such a fascinating concept to me that those things can coexist. Like, you can experience this incredible grief and pain while knowing that this is inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what. And, I think there's peace in realizing that both of those things can coexist. But there's also just a lot of question that I have about it as well. I've handled it a million ways, I think, but yeah, there's a huge process of grief that comes in realizing that your life isn't what you thought it was going to be, and it's not even close. So getting diagnosed with cancer obviously turned my entire world upside down, and it changed me in so many ways. And that was super hard for me to wrap my head around. Like, it wasn't until I had finished treatment that I was able to go back and look at pictures of myself as a little girl and be like, okay, we're still here. I'm still you, you're still me. We've just had a lot happen to us. So it took a really long time for me to be able to kind of make that connection and know that, because I felt so separated from my own self for so long. And especially when you're looking in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself and your face is sunken in and you have no hair, and you can see your collarbones for once, which is actually kind of cool. It's such a strange feeling to kind of know mentally that you are not in the same, it's like you're not in the same physical body, even though you are. It's confusing to your brain, I would say. So I've done my best to really just practice like radical acceptance and just know that I don't have to like my current situation, and I don't have to like what I'm going through to accept it. And I think a huge thing that also helped me is I read something by a philosopher called amor fati, and it's this idea that you learn to love every single thing that happens to you, no matter what it is. If it's horrible, if it's great, you don't like it, you don't dislike it, you're not impartial to it, you love it, you embrace it, you know that it creates growth for you, and you just walk towards it, like you keep going. So that's something huge for me. And I think just developing this attitude of fearlessness has been so helpful for me, not in the normal way of fearlessness being the absence of fear, but more so having that fear, experiencing that, living through it, and then walking towards the fire anyway, just walking through it and just knowing I'm going to see the other side. I've had a couple moments where like my life has flashed before my eyes, and car accidents and that kind of thing that happened very quickly. But cancer was such a different journey for me because it was like watching myself die slowly, one day at a time. And with the idea of the chemo being dosed correctly to my weight to kill all of the new cells in my body without actually stopping my heart, there was this whole new level of, riding this line, walking this line of life and death. And so in one of my chemotherapy sessions specifically, I think it was maybe my 4th out of 8, it was actually because of COVID. All my family had it, and so I had to get kicked out of my house. And I was staying alone, well, with my boyfriend, but pretty much alone in my aunt's house who had gone on vacation. And so he was dealing with me and taking care of me in a way that he didn't know how. So for that week of chemo, and sometimes it would hit me just so much harder than other times, and I could never figure out why. But this time it hit me really hard. And the week, now looking back on it, is a total blur, but I was kind of riding the line of consciousness and unconsciousness for about 6 days straight, where I would wake up in the infusion room again. I went back every day because I had hydration, or I had to have some infusions of like vitamins, or I was doing so badly that I would need some steroids as well. And I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking. I was having these constant fever dreams. And I just remember one night looking out the window and just thinking, this might be my last night. Like, this might be the last thing I see. And I went to bed that night, and I remember sleeping so much more peacefully than I ever had before. And there was such a heavy air to it that I knew that things weren't normal. So at this point too, the bleomycin was affecting my lungs, and I could feel every breath in, every time I inhaled, it was so painful. It was like something sitting on my chest. And when you're not quite conscious, it's confusing. Like, you don't really know what's going on. So I remember like being half awake, half asleep, and just thinking like, Abbey, breathe, just one at a time. Inhale, exhale, and just do it. Like, just do it all night and you'll wake up. And I remember, I don't know, I didn't see anything or hear anything, but I had this overwhelming presence of, like I said, peace, but also darkness and such a heaviness. And I think I knew at that point, you have a choice. You get to decide, do you want to keep breathing? Do you want to go back to your family and friends? Like, do you want to keep living this life? Or do you want it to be easy? And I remember how easy it would have been. But I decided to keep breathing. So, yeah. The way that I deal with a lot of my things and all of these things that come up, I really just try to create. And I, like, as an artist, it makes it easier for me to kind of know that something's coming out of it. Like, I can create this, I make this, and, you know, whether it's photography or poetry or just writing or, you know, whatever it is, like that's helped me so much to know that I can create out of like the terrible things that I've seen or experienced. And it's weird, I feel like I'm not most creative, but I'm most inspired in some of the darkest points of my life, which is interesting. Okay, let's see. Okay, I found it. All right. Outside, the leaves drift silently down to their final resting place. Their colors rot into the earth as gentle tears stream down my face. This place is colder than I figured. A favor, a refuge, the warmth of a home. But as I lay here, broken and triggered, I realize I've never been so alone. I close my eyes to spare my suffering. The steroids make my body scream. Searching desperately in my subconscious for a way out, I begin to slip into a dream. As I walk through the valley, a figure comes closer. His name tastes familiar, his hood draped in black. My age didn't stop him from noticing me. He caresses my face, saying, "Not yet, I'll be back." My bones and back in agony, lungs sound like they might collapse, my heart beating in atrophy, but my light shines through the cracks. You see, I didn't get a choice in this. And while the fog hangs low, my guardian angels carry lanterns and whisper, "Pain is how we grow." And so I lie up in this deathbed, in enough torment to contemplate leaving. But I still see so much beauty in those falling leaves. So I make the choice, keep breathing. Amor fati. Love your life, love everything that happens to you. Find the opportunity in experiencing every single thing you can in this life, and know that through suffering or pain or joy or beauty, it is all a part of this beautiful experience, and just embrace it. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you. You've gotten through the hardest things that you never, ever thought you would have to go through. And you're amazing.